It didn't feel like a Good Friday. Good's the last word that I'd say was even on my mind that day. If it was good, then why'd they show up armed and irate, ready with the trial date, saying he would die that day? No, it didn't feel like a Good Friday. It felt like the opposite entirely. It was really just a good day to hide away and maybe try to cry away this emptiness inside of me, because here's the reason I'm afraid. We thought he was the Christ who saves. He was supposed to be one just like Moses. He leads unopposed as he overthrows foes, and he was going to be our Gideon who's fighting battles, winning them, with bravery beginning a dominion for millenia. For years we had waited for one just like David, a king who would reign in a kingdom unfading. We thought he'd be like Solomon, with wisdom, glory, all of it. A preacher and a father and a guide to those who follow him, and it all had seemed so promising. They praised him like a mighty king and raised him up so prominent. But not a week had gone by us since we'd entered Zion. The streets rang Hosanna in the highest. They praised and they sang, and they all were so pious, but the dancing and singing had then all gone quiet. Then the crowd, yelling loud, had turned into a riot. One crowd had rejoiced and had glorified him. Now one stood with one voice and screamed, "Crucify him!" The ones he had loved were the ones who denied him. Instead of exalting him, they all defied him. The ones who should tremble in awe just to meet him were the same ones who left Jesus marred, bruised, and beaten. The soldiers tightened their grip with each lash of the whip, with the pieces of iron and bone at the tip, being sure not to slip in the blood that had dripped from his back that was ripped to a bloody red tangle. There's no cause for arrest and no laws he transgressed. There's no sin for the great Son of God to confess. But because of the rest and the sin in their chest, the Word become flesh was the flesh that was mangled. But the soldiers weren't done with their sick, twisted fun. They were just getting started. The morning was young. They took up some thorns and they twisted a crown, and they taunted them more as they shoved it on down. So there was Jesus, adorned with the curse of the ground. Then they struck him, shouting mockingly, "We bow and hail our mighty King." I had hoped all Rome would say those things, but I'd imagined a much different scene. And then they spat, and they hit, and he endured all of it. With not a word from his lips, and with even clenched fists, the dead came at his beckoning. His voice stopped the wind, so his silence was deafening as they struck him again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And those feet that had walked in the waves on the water now walked like a Passover lamb to the slaughter. My mind filled with dread, fearing what was ahead, knowing even more blood was about to be shed. The sickening sound of the hammer and cries when they nailed Jesus down and they raised him on high, not raised up to worship, but raised up to die. The evildoers before him and on either side, and the ones who ignored him and quickly walked by, going on with their lives as if everything's fine, unaware the man dying is the great Adonai. And the insults kept coming in one steady stream from the sign up above him that mocked at our dreams, the soldiers beneath playing games among screams. But his garments weren't all that they ripped at the seams, because this wouldn't have happened to the King of all kings. No, this couldn't have happened to the King of all kings. And then we looked up to the sun while it faded, hiding from him who had chose to create it, as if not to look upon what now awaited, for only the darkness was fit for what they did. And with a last cry of anguish, and one final shout, and Jesus, the light of the world, was snuffed out. The darkness got darker as evil prevailed, and the pain became sharper that Jesus had failed. They took down his corpse, put it into a tomb, and we ran for our lives as panic ensued. We trembled with fear and locked in a room, knowing our coming deaths would be like his too. We followed him to the end. At what cost? Jesus said, I am the way. Now we're lost. He said he was truth. Now it all just seems false. And how is he life if he died on the cross? For the one thing my heart was beginning to know was the nightmares were winning and did what they chose. And to all of our prayers, God answered with no. All alone, on our own, with a mightier foe who would trample and kill all the ones he opposed. For the darkness held fast and would never let go. And then the sun rose.